Good morning. I am calling the Senate Education Committee to order. And at the same time, I'm calling the Senate Education Committee with recess that will last until about 9:30. So we'll hope to see you back then. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. We had recessed the committee to 9:30, and it's now 9:30, and will come out of recess. So let's stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Victoria Sullivan, would you be willing to do
I
that?
would be willing, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first bill we have here is 184, and the prime sponsor, Representative Wheeler, is here.
Thank you, Madam Chairman,
Welcome.
members and friends on the Senate Education Committee. My name, for the record, is Representative Jonah O'Ryan Wheeler. I represent the towns of Peterborough and Sharon. HB 184, I brought this forward because a group of parents in my town came to me to discuss the issue of school start times in New Hampshire. And they were quite concerned by how early their children were waking up and how it was affecting their education and their ability to go to school, their ability to have a full day. So after some thorough conversation with them and looking at what other states had done, doing some extensive research on this topic, I came down on the side of, I think, a study committee, a statewide chartered study committee to find out what implementation of this policy would look like at either a local or a state level was the right way to move forward, as opposed to a stick, using a carrot to try to incentivize people to come and talk to us about what school start times would look like, or changing the school start times would look like, rather than enforcing a mandate like some of the legislation in other states. There are school districts throughout the state that have moved forward on changing their school start times, and we in the House, during our hearing on this legislation, talked about the potential for those school districts to come and tell us about what they had gone through in the process to getting their school start times changed and what that would look like. We talked about the health of students and how important it was to make sure that students have a full and healthy day in their classroom, just so that they can learn. Starting your day where you aren't fully awake means that you're starting at a lower position than that of somebody who's fully awake and ready to start their day. The number of different plans throughout the state, the busing plans throughout the state, is another reason why this wasn't a mandate, because these busing programs are varied and different throughout the state. There's a lot of complexities to the issues of starting school earlier. So that's why we thought a school start time committee would be more beneficial rather than mandate enforced at a statewide level. So you guys have a lot before you, and I won't take up too much of your time. It's a fairly simple bill, although I'll caution myself with the words of Representative Smith. Every time someone says it's a simple bill, it usually isn't. But I think this is genuinely a simple bill, and I think that Mr. Murphy from Senate Research I had a chance to look through this very briefly while we were in recess, and I think he's done some good research here, and I thank him for doing so, and I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Okay, thank you. Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative, for being here. Always a pleasure. So my question is, the parents that approached you, what grade levels were their children in?
So I don't want to get it wrong, but what I can say, Senator Sullivan, is you can go back to the House committee's public hearing, the date of which was, let me pull this up here. The date of which was 1/15/25 at 3:00, and in education policy and administration. And there were students that came to testify to the House committee on this, including some of those students from those parents. And I wouldn't want to get their ages wrong, but I think they were in early middle school, late elementary school.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Prentice.
Good morning, Representative Wheeler.
Morning, Senator.
Good to see you, not in the flurry of a hallway. So thank you for taking it might be questions, but I think it's one question right now with the statement. First thing is, when I first heard about this, it was actually from high school students who approached me from the Seacoast a few years ago. And I had sent them to their local senator, and actually it was my first term. So I have heard about this. I heard about it from high school students. But my question for you is, are you envisioning, and I might be putting the cart before the horse, that this is something you would set a range of start times and that school districts across the state could adopt those ranges, or you're looking to have one start time? And some of this leans into Senator Sullivan's question about grade levels too.
I think that's what's important about the study committee. In the House, we had the original language was such that the study committee would be studying legislation around school start times. Now, that's paraphrasing, but essentially what the bill said. And what we were able to do in the committee was amend that to be more of an open question as to whether or not this would be a good idea for the state of New Hampshire to move forward on. So I envision the study committee as one that can look at the complexities of this idea and take what other people are saying, like students in the Seacoast who would like to start their school a little later, or people who want their sports to be addressed in part of the conversation, all the different complexities that come into this issue, and bringing all those together in one comprehensive place to see at the end of it what that cart might look like.
Follow up. So would it be fair to say that the study committee could look at what a range of possibilities are rather than making one mandate across the state, but make recommendations for local school districts to consider?
Absolutely. And I think that would be a great way to use this study committee as a way to get that done. I wouldn't want any one prescriptive measure to be applied to the study committee before they've done their work.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Representative Wheeler.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Abbas?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for taking my question. I understand maybe this is included, maybe it's not. The start time, if you change the start time, I think the end time also ends. And for me, just as a parent with kids in school, I have to get there at a certain time. If it got out too early, I would also run into some problems. So would you, if this doesn't cover that, would you support or any amendment that would add the beginning and the end of school?
It's the committee's bill, so I support what the committee feels is best to do with this bill. What I would say is, Senator, the legislation doesn't set forth any specific policy on school start times, but in the event that it did, I would absolutely support amending it to make sure that parents had as much leeway as they could.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Altshuler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my question. This is a perennial issue, not new. Have you heard from within your district that, and I wish we had your hearing report so that we could follow up on some of that, what happened in your hearing. What has your school board done? Like, how has this been addressed at the local level? Because it has been addressed at the local level around the state, and it is genuinely a school board's prerogative to decide if this is something they want to change. So when you're saying that your constituents came to you to bring this to the state level, had they gone to their school board and been unsuccessful in having this discussion?
Yes, the school board was very flippant and not open to hearing what they had to say, which is why they came to me as their state legislator, because sometimes the school board and local boards get a little high and mighty, and their attitude, in that high and mighty, arrogant attitude, ends up having them talk down to parents. And those parents were talked down to by my school board, so they came to me as their state legislator to try to get this issue done. There are 3 school districts throughout this state which have moved forward on changing the school start times. I would like to bring forward, as I said in my initial testimony, their information that they used to change their school start times and the comprehensive opinion of people throughout the state in a statewide study committee to try to figure out what we can do about this perennial issue and making sure we can try to figure something out. Maybe that, as Senator Prentice says, is some way to aid school districts locally in moving forward to change their school start times. Maybe it's we find some way to get this done at a statewide level. That's why I saw the importance of a study committee here today. We discussed moving this forward at a local level on the House committee side, and it was determined that given the fact that school boards can, in some instances, be a little bit flippant to parents, that the state did have it was the place where a study committee comprehensively should happen for changes to statewide policy.
Have you had a chance to take a look at the report from a couple of years ago where we looked into this very, very similar issue?
I had, actually. Someone had shown me the report after the House hearing. Ann Fitzgerald, she took me up to the fourth floor and showed me into the dusty room where all the study committee reports collect dust. So I was able to look at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that of any help at all?
Somewhat, but I think that the comprehensive nature of it was
Okay.
lacking.
I have a follow-up question. You talk about school needs to start later. How much, it seems to me that problem with the starting time of the schools is because of the transportation issue. And the buses have to come at a certain time in order to get the kid to the school on time. And the children don't live very close together, at least not in my rural area. So the bus trip is taking a significant part of that morning for that child.
Absolutely. And I live in a really big district in Conval where people have to travel a long time to get to school. So I know that firsthand. What I would say, Senator, is, and what we brought up in the House hearing on this, the conversation around busing, I think, is outweighed by the conversation of the health of the students. And I ultimately think that for us here in the legislature, that we shouldn't allow ourselves to vote down any potential figuring out of what we could do to best promote the health of our students just because of the potential for it being a little chaotic for the private busing companies that are transporting our students. I think we have to work with the private busing companies and make sure that we transport our students to the school in an appropriate time and with a good partnership between us and those companies. But I think ultimately we should, as the state, determine what's best for our health of our students over whatever is best for the
I have to
company.
agree with Senator Abbas. If you're delaying the starting time in the morning, you have to accept the fact that you're going to go later in the afternoon. So either that or start going on Saturdays in order to get all the hours in. So, any other questions from committee members?
Just a quick follow, Senator Ward, quick follow-up. Actually, a follow-up to what Senator Ward just said, and it goes back to a suggestion for you, Representative Wheeler, is that by looking at a range, you can manage all of these complexities of more urban districts versus more rural districts where, busing does drive and literally drive a lot of how these decisions are made. The distance in between people, in between homes and neighborhoods is so much different. So I would just encourage that if this were to make it across the finish line, that you think about a range for communities and let them make the decision about what's going to work best for them. That's all.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't want, as I said, I wouldn't want any prescriptive measure, bless you, to come from the study committee. I just want the study committee to look at these issues that you're bringing forward, Senator Ward, and try to come up with some kind of comprehensive solution, whether that's the range or something else to get that done. And the House committee voted unanimously because we were able to figure out how to open up the question on it and make it so it wasn't as prescriptive as initially was introduced.
Any other questions, further questions? No,
Well, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairman Ward, members of the committee.
That ends the hearing on 184. Next one, we have House Bill 193. And let's see there. And the prime sponsor is Representative Ladd. Anybody here speaking for Representative Ladd? I don't see any. You want to go up and introduce it?
Sure.
Senator Sullivan
Give
will
it a whirl.
introduce the bill.
Good morning, members of the committee. I am here to introduce House Bill 193 relative to the maximum number of credits per course eligible for the dual and concurrent enrollment program. I don't think you want to
That's
ask me
it.
any questions.
That's it. You don't have to say anything more. So Shannon Reed, you'd like to speak to this bill?
Good morning, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Shannon Reed. I am Director of Government Affairs for the Community College System of New Hampshire. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this bill. A little background. New Hampshire has a dual and concurrent enrollment program across the state. It enables high school students to take courses for dual high school and college credit. This program has been in place for a couple decades now. It's a very successful program. More than 10,000 students every year from every region of New Hampshire take advantage of this program, collectively earning about 60,000 college credits before they graduate from high school. This saves millions of dollars for New Hampshire families from the cost of college education. It helps students accelerate their pathway to college and or career, helps students gain confidence in college level learning, raises aspirations for those students who hadn't really thought much beyond high school, and enables students to take courses they might not have otherwise had access to. There is currently state funding to pay for some of these courses for high school students, and you see that that is in the statute that establishes the program. This bill is a fairly simple bill, which I'm remembering what the
Another
previous
simple one.
person said about that, but I think it truly is. The intent of this bill is to just confirm that the courses that are eligible for the state funding shall be no more than 4 credits. Typically, community college courses are 3 or 4 credits, but we do have a handful of courses that are significantly more, and it was not envisioned that those courses would be funded by the state program. So this bill, that's all of it does. It says that the courses that are funded pursuant to that program for the students are up to 4 credits each, and that's really all that it is. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Questions, Senator Abbas?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for taking my question. I know, can you give me an example of some courses that are more than 4 credits?
Sure, there aren't many, and they tend to be in our highly technical fields. So, for example, in our aviation technology program, airframe and power plant are more than 4 credits. Some of our paramedic and fire programs are more than 4 credits. Advanced machine tool would be probably 6-ish. Some of our nursing programs are more than 4. So it's not many, but this issue came up a couple of times in the last few years. So we just wanted to make it clear for students and families what was eligible.
Thank you.
Senator Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my question. Is there a reason we don't want to include those higher credit courses?
Only because the money can only stretch so far. So we're trying to be fiscally prudent and make sure that we can impact the most number of students with this program. I mean, I'd say that's a primary reason. The funding that's been appropriated for it doesn't reach as far as we'd like as it is. So this is just a way to broaden the impact.
Thank you.
Any questions? So a student can take these courses for 3 years, right? Starting at 11th grade, 11, 12, 13.
Typically, students are juniors or seniors when they take these courses. 10th graders, sophomores are eligible if the course is eligible. So often you'll have a 10th grader sitting in the class with an 11th grader, and that student's eligible. So, but these are college level courses, so there are standards, and there are you want the students to be ready, and you want the courses to be as rigorous as they would be if they were offered at the college.
So they can take 4 courses a year.
The students can take as many courses a year as they want to, but the program covers up to 4. Students can pay for more than 4. And in fact, the funding that is currently in place for the program doesn't support 4 a year. So we have limited it to 2 because that's what the that's what the funding will cover.
Okay. Because I was looking at it and I figured it's a student taking it for 3 years, 4 courses a year, they get 12 courses. And if those are 4 credits each, they end up with 36 credits. And how many credits to graduate from
The
NHCI?
typical associate degree program has about 60 to 65 credits. We do have every year a handful of students who graduate high school having already earned an associate degree, which is something we're very, very proud of. But we have thousands of students who graduate high school with some progress made toward a college degree before they graduate.
So the courses that you have available, they're pretty much what I would refer to as core courses.
Yes.
So they can get rid of those and get them done and then concentrate on something else if they want.
There's a wide array of courses that students can take from the foundational kind of English and math. That's probably where the majority of them are taken, but also human biology, the other natural sciences, business, history, psychology. There's really a wide range of courses that are available to students.
Any questions from the committee members? Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else in the audience who likes to chime in on this bill, HB 193? If not, that closes the public hearing on 193. The next bill is House Bill 222. Let's see. Do we have Representative Ballouni? Okay.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Senate Education Committee. I have passed out my written testimony and testimony as well by my co-sponsor, Representative Maureen Mooney. For the record, I'm Peggy Balboni, representing the towns of Greenland, Northampton, and Rye, and I'm the prime sponsor of HB 222, which would repeal the requirement for a memorandum of understanding between a chartered public school and school district regarding how students with disabilities will receive special education services. I'm bringing this bipartisan legislation forward at the request of the New Hampshire Association of Special Education Administrators and the New Hampshire Alliance for Public Charter Schools, the two groups involved in producing and implementing memorandums of understanding between public charter schools and local education agencies. Briefly, charter schools are public schools but run independently, generally exempt from many state laws that govern traditional public schools. Technically, charter schools, as all public schools, are required to admit students with disabilities per federal law. Unlike other states, New Hampshire is unique in that the school district in which the student resides is responsible for providing a free, appropriate public education, including the funding and required services to those children with individual education plans that a parent has independently enrolled in a charter school. There are 4 ways in which this can occur. One, send residents. They can either send resident school district staff to the charter school. They can contract with the charter school for charter school staff to provide the services. They can contract with a vendor to provide services at or away from the charter school, or they can provide services in the resident district's own public schools. A student's IEP is developed by the resident district and details what specially designed instruction and related services the student will receive. It is up to the local education agencies and the charter schools to determine how the services will be delivered. Occasionally, it can be a challenge for the school districts and the charter schools to come to an agreement on all aspects of the IEP, But for the most part, these barriers are resolved by working collaboratively. Once signed by the parent, the IEP is the legal document that commits the school district to provision of services as outlined in the IEP. It is important to note that in 2016, a legislative commission was formed to identify challenges related to special education in New Hampshire public charter schools and bring forward recommendations to improve the process, ensuring that all students with IEPs are receiving the services that they need. One of these recommendations was that the New Hampshire Department of Education require the LEAs and the public charter schools to formally detail how students with IEPs will receive required services. A law requiring the Memorandum of Understandings was passed in 2021. Unfortunately, rather than smooth the path, the MOUs have created more work and increased legal costs for both school districts and the charter schools. While most charter schools and LEAs are able to come to agreements in completing the MOUs, many still remain unsigned, primarily due to financial disagreements. Currently, while MOUs are required by law, there is no impasse resolution process, and they are not enforceable. According to the Department of Education, there are currently 94 memorandums of understanding that have not been signed for the 2024-25 school year, and 16 of these were not signed for 2 consecutive years. Since LEA and charter school personnel are spending hours of time hammering out the details and incurring increased legal expenses, they are requesting the repeal of this requirement. Both federal and state laws require that school districts provide a free and appropriate education to all eligible students, and data from the Department of Education supports that no school district has refused to provide special education or related services to any child attending a public charter school because the Memorandum of Understanding was not signed by both parties. Prior to the Memorandum of Understanding requirement, there were 3 special education complaints filed related to the provision of services as a charter school. So far this year, the number is the same. So it seems that the existence of the MOU has had little effect. The House Education and Policy Administration Committee recommended this bill ought to pass 18-0, and it passed on the consent calendar on March 6th. I hope that you will support this legislation to remove the MOU requirement to allow both the charter school personnel and district special educators to focus on educating our students rather than administrative tasks. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Senator Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my question. This is actually a bill that I got quite a few emails on with parents asking me to kill this bill because they have found that the MOU was very helpful to them. Of all the calls I get for education, the 2 most frequent are bullying and special education, especially when it's special education with a charter school. So I won't be supporting this bill. Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We call Beth McClure. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Beth McClure. I am principal at Strong Foundations Charter School, a member of the board of the Alliance for Public Charter Schools, and also a member of the New Hampshire Association of Special Educators. I want to give you some context on why this bill is important. The first year that the MOUs were slated to be used, I was concerned about the amount of time that would be involved. In our school, and as I learned from Jane Bergeron, the executive director of NHASEA, there are no children who are not receiving services. In other words, all children are receiving services except for perhaps a few, and none of those are due to lack of a signed MOU. So in our particular school, all students are receiving services, and it's widespread that students are. I was also part of the commission in 2016, and although I don't remember that recommendation, I do remember the broad consensus was that things were working well in between LEAs and public charter schools. In 2023, the first year that the MOU was implemented, the state was to provide a template, which came out, I think, in August. At that point, I already had a number of MOUs from the districts. And in preparation for that school year, I easily spent about 45 hours pouring through the different versions of the MOUs. Our board had authorized the state template, but there were many different versions. I had to send them to our legal counsel. And that was all while we were trying to get ready to open school. So needless to say, those were some 80-hour work weeks. We then came to, I was concerned about the MOUs, but I thought it was something that the districts wanted. So of course it was a law too. And so I went ahead and did everything I could to make it work. We were told that it was brought forth in order to make sure that there was provision for services for all the students with special ed needs. So we proceeded with that. Then I joined the collaborative work group between the Alliance and the NHA SEA, which was formed really because of, well, with the objective of us working out solutions to our mutual concerns and to provide an avenue for communication. So our primary focus that first year was the MOUs. In the course of our conversation, I learned that the members of the work group who were special ed administrators also did not find the MOU helpful. So I think it had the unintended consequence of creating more work without benefit. So we asked that this be brought forward again this year in September, August and September. I spent a lot of time and also additional legal fees to work out the MOUs. When I testified about this bill in the House, I also learned that NHED felt that it was important to have the MOU for oversight of special ed in charter schools. I learned that after my testimony. So I just want to share with you the ways that there is oversight in charter schools for special education. When we refer a student for special ed services, or at least to be evaluated, the district is the one who handles that. So we send the referral to the district, and the district is part of that meeting. They also have decision-making responsibilities and the financial responsibilities for special ed. They attend, a representative of the LEA attends all the special education meetings, IEP meetings, and progress meetings. We send them, all charter schools, send them service logs with the date and duration of services, who met with them, attendance records, and an invoice if they contract with us as a charter school. So they get those records. In addition, NHED audits the district schools' special ed programs, and as part of those audits, the district schools need to provide files of students with IEPs who are enrolled in charter schools. So NHED has that oversight. The MOU does not provide that oversight. That may be the intent, and it doesn't seem to facilitate the provision of services. And there are already mechanisms in place for oversight. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Senator Altshuler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my question. So just to clarify, when a student is a charter school student and they require special education services, if I recall, an IEP meeting includes the district, a representative from the district, special education services, a representative from the charter school, and the parents, correct? And is that, those are, and they.
And the classroom teacher.
In the class, thank you, thank you. So the MOU, so if that is the four in this cluster who are working out what is the best educational program, IEP, individualized educational program for the child, the MOU does not affect that cluster of people in any way. They still have to follow the IEP, do the billing, and do the supervision and auditing of whether the services have been delivered. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, so without the MOU, may I follow up?
Follow up.
Without the MOU, which is seems like it was well intended, but doesn't add to the equation. Without this MOU, students are it is still required by law that students get these services, and the oversight of those services is still done by the sending district. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Just wanted who's responsible for checking on something that's required by law under IDA. So thank you. Got it.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for taking my question. Just on average, how long are these MOUs?
They can vary in length, anywhere from 4 to 6 pages. If you're talking about the length of the document, is that correct?
Yes.
4 to 6 pages, and then there are optional attachments that include how the services will be provided.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Sure. Senator Prentice.
Thank you, Chair Ward, and Ms. McClure, thank you for taking my questions. I have maybe two for you, and so this is a bipartisan piece of legislation that's come forward, and from what I've heard today, the service, so this is for public charter schools, that the services are being provided. Okay, and
Yes.
that's number one, and follow up.
Follow up.
The second, you said the Department of Education came in and testified maybe after you that said that this was put in place for the purposes of oversight.
Yes.
Okay, number three,
Follow up.
very simple, thank you. Outside of seeing in the opening testimony where MOUs are lingering and not signed, but services are still being provided, do we have any examples or do you have anything that you can share with us where there are problems that exist that this is fixing?
No. And we surveyed our alliance members to see if there was an issue, and they didn't see the MOUs as being helpful either. So there's not a problem that they're fixing.
Right, so that the services are being, may I, just to wrap, the services are being provided. It is the administrative piece that has become an extra layer, a struggle, and 94 of them remain unsigned, but these children are still cooperatively between the LEA and the public charter school. They're still getting the services that they need.
Yes, because it's already required by law.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my question. Representative Alboni, I apologize. I should have put that in a question form and not made a statement at you, so I apologize for that. So my experience dealing with the public and people that are children that are in charter schools and have special education is not what you're expressing. There's been a lot of frustration between the children in the charter schools that are from the receiving district not complying. And like I said, I received a lot of emails on this. I also
did speak with the DOE. So would you believe when I spoke with the DOE, they said since this has been put into effect, they have had a significant decline in parents coming to them with concerns over special education with the charter schools?
Is there a question you'd like me to answer?
Would you believe that the DOE has seen a significant decrease in parents coming to them with concerns about special education they're receiving with charter schools?
I don't have information on that. We just asked the members on the ground of the NHASEA and the Alliance about that.
Senator Prentice.
Thank you, not a question for you, but Senator Ward, is it possible, given the conversation this morning, do we have anybody from the Department of Education here?
Eventually, yes.
Eventually, all right,
Yes,
perfect,
yes,
then I will stop. Thank you.
I do have a question. Since Senator Sullivan has expressed that she has parents who are concerned, have the parents been involved? Do they understand what is happening and the reason for it? Because if they express anxiety and about their child's IEP education, it seems to me that we need to talk to the parents, and the parents need to understand what is happening and why.
Yes. May I add to my answer?
Sure.
Okay. If the child is not receiving services, then the parent can file a complaint. The charter school cannot file a complaint, but the parent can file a complaint with NHED. So, DOE was renamed NHED, so that's why I'm using that. So we can't do anything, but the parent can.
Have you experienced complaints from parents?
No, we provide services even if our MOUs aren't signed.
Okay. Thank you. That's the end of the questions from the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I've called Jessica Bickford.
Good morning, committee. Thank you for hearing my testimony today. I am filling in for Jane Bergeron as representing the NHA SEA, the New Hampshire Administration, Special Education Administrators. So I'll try not to repeat what you've already heard this morning, just to kind of keep it streamlined. But we work very closely with Strong Foundations and several other charter schools. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Student Services over at Pembroke, Allenstown, Chichester for SAU 53. And we have several students off in charter schools that we provide services for. The NHASEA would like to emphasize the importance of collaboration between the New Hampshire school districts, New Hampshire Charter Public Schools, and the Department of Education. For the last 3 years, as mentioned, there has been a committee that has been coming together to work collaboratively and solve problems that come up in charter schools with regards to special education. It is important for us to keep in mind that the individual education programs, the IEPs for students with special needs, serves as the legal document for implementation that holds the school district accountable for what it supplies for students with disabilities. The MOU has nothing to do with the actual implementation of special education. It only outlines the agreement on how those two districts are going to implement that service, not the actual implementation of a service. The mandated MOU serves no real purpose other than it attempts to strengthen relationships and communication between the school district and the charter school. The MOU is a departure from any requirement of the IDEA. It is not required by state special education rules, and after 2 years of implementation, has no demonstrated positive impact upon improving student learning. In some cases, the MOU has negatively impacted relationships between school districts and charter schools when they don't agree on the language within the MOU, even the state-provided language on the MOU. Often when we are not able to have a MOU signed, it's because the charter school has not signed the provided MOU that has been given by the state as a template. The NHASEA would also like would ask the question, what is the issue we are trying to resolve with the mandated MOU? The association will note that the MOU has created hours and hours of meetings, discussions, hiring of attorneys, and unexpected financial burden for both charter schools and school districts, as you heard earlier from Strong Foundations. Ultimately, the MOU has created more unnecessary bureaucracy, has become an unfunded mandate, and has taken away valuable time that should be directed toward most complex learners and their families. Noteworthy is that there is no impasse resolution when there are outstanding disagreements with the MOU, which is why there are so many potentially unsigned MOUs, is because there's no resolution to that is above the districts to help them come to resolution on that agreement. The Bureau of Special Education oversees the implementation of that MOU for the public schools, the districts, the LEAs. However, they have no oversight on charter schools and their implementation of special education. They only implement that implementation for the LEAs, which I know has been a frustration around. Noteworthy is that the requirement of the MOU does not address the real challenge, that of funding and covering the cost to educate a student with an IEP enrolled in New Hampshire public charter schools. The number of children and youth with disabilities enrolled in New Hampshire public charter schools continues to grow. Funding sources for special education continues to decrease, and there's a critical shortage of special educators, both at the charter schools and at the LEAs. The MOU is not the solution. It adds an additional layer of burden to both the charter school and the resident school district. Lastly, the NHASEA advocates for directing the resources, time, and expertise of our professionals toward working with children, youth, and families rather than unnecessary paperwork and costly related legal fees. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the committee members? Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is this MOU, is it a copy of this, hopefully signed, provided to the parents of the student?
No, this is an MOU is just that it's that memorandum of understanding of how the two school districts are going to work together. So a copy only goes to the charter school. It stays at the public LEA, and then a copy goes to the Special Education Bureau for oversight and implementation of the LEA.
Follow-up?
Follow-up?
Could it be made available upon request?
It could, certainly, yep. I personally have never had anybody request it. I'm not sure that any of our families even know that that exists. I just want to add as well that the MOU is separate from the contracts that we create with our charter schools. So for example, with Strong Foundations, if I have a student there who's receiving special education, that MOU that is signed at the beginning of the year has nothing to do with how we manage how we're going to pay for those services that we deliver. We develop separate contracts that are different from the MOUs when providing services.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Senator Altshuler?
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, there is a contract between the sending district and the charter school to pay for the services, and additionally, the IEP, the individualized education plan, is signed between the sending district, the charter school, and the parents. And so the student is receiving services that is agreed upon by the sending district, the charter school, the teacher, and the parents. And then there is a separate contract to pay for that. And this MOU is a third layer. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Some schools have taken it upon themselves to combine the contract and the MOU. My districts have not and will not do that because the MOU shouldn't necessarily dictate like our costs and our service programs. The MOU is just how we're going to collaborate together. So we keep that separate in my district. Some districts have chosen to combine those things, but we have not. And if there are complaints around special education delivery and the lack thereof, that's not due to an MOU. That's due to likely the team disagreeing on what services are required or should be implemented, or some other rationale that's going on. I have not experienced that because there's not an MOU signed that would have anything to do with IEP services.
Thank you.
Do you have anything? Sir? No. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Now we have Rebecca Fredette.
Good morning. My name is Rebecca Fredette. I am the State Director of Special Education at the Department of Education. I am mostly here for technical questions, but I can address some of the things that have come up. We do understand the concerns of the time that this takes. We have talked with districts and with charter schools around this. The MOU was created in collaboration with the charter schools and the districts, and then approved by our commissioner before it went out to districts. I think my words were slightly misunderstood when I said that if there is no MOU, there would be no other oversight within the charter schools, because we do not oversee charter schools, special education in charter schools. So while this is not an oversight, it does give us a look at what is going on in charter schools. For example, yesterday I had a charter school call us and say, the district is not paying us. How can you help us? We pulled up the MOU and we said, we can't, because in your MOU it says we're going to, this will be discussed. So I couldn't reach out to the school and say, you agreed in your MOU this was going to happen. We said, you're going to have to figure this out on your own. So it just gives us that assistance to help districts. And I would go to the question, districts do not oversee the charter school. Districts oversee the work of the IEP, and the implementation of the IEP, and they collaborate with the charter to do that. If an IEP is not implemented by the charter school, and while neither side has data on whether this is happening or not, I would suggest that it could still be happening. If an IEP is not implemented by the charter school, the district is the one that has the complaint filed against them, not the charter school. Anyone can file a complaint. The charter school can file a complaint. A parent can file a complaint. The paraprofessional in the school can file a complaint. Anyone can file a complaint if they feel that the services are not being provided. I had written notes as we were talking so I could make sure. And we did have 94 MOUs that were not returned. However, that position was vacant in our office. We filled that position, and currently we only have 56 MOUs that have not been turned in. We've also implemented, if this were to continue to be in law, we understood the time and effort that this takes. We had implemented that we would not be checking them every year. We would make it part of our monitoring cycle. And so once every 6 years, we would come to the school and we could say, can you show us your MOUs with your charter schools? Can you show us that you're collaborating? So that this wasn't something they had to turn into us every year, wasn't some paperwork they had to continue to file with us. I think I touched on everything, but I'm more than willing to take any questions that you might have.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. It's nice to see you again, Rebecca.
Nice to see you.
So I'm looking at the template for this, and it's very basic. It's a very basic agreement, right? It's the IEP, the frequency, duration, services provided by, location of services, which in my experience has been a huge issue of the location of the services when it comes to charter schools. I had a family that the child was actually going back to Manchester schools for services and they were not aware. But they were actually taking transportation from the school. Services will be paid by, services paid to, individual group rate. These are all really basic questions that need to be answered for any contract. So are you, in your capacity, are you seeing that with this in place, you're getting less concerns brought to you from parents? Is it making it more streamlined in most cases?
So, as Representative Balboni said, we do have 3 complaints that related to charter schools this year. We had no complaints related to charter schools last year. At the same time, when parents call us and they say, we would like to file a complaint against the charter school, and then we explain that that's not allowed, they do not want to file a complaint against the district because that's not who they have the issue with. So I think that I think that for some districts it has helped. For some districts, it did not make an impact at all. Because they already had a really good relationship with their charter schools. They were already working really well with them, but there were relationships that were not going well that we would hear about and say, we're not able to collaborate with them. We're not able to figure out how services are going to be provided. They're not giving us performance reports on the students. So I think it helped somewhat. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Could it be worked on? Yes, it could. But I think that it gives something for them to be able to say, this is how we've collaborated. This is how we're going to work together. And then when there is an issue, they can fall back to that and say, we have this MOU that has said what we've decided on and how we're going to collaborate to get this done.
One more question.
Follow up.
Would you be able to work with me to figure out how to make this a better system?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Altshuler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So when you said that there are complaints, that you had 3 complaints, were those complaints about the MOUs or complaints about the delivery of services?
So the complaints would only be regarding the IEP and the implementation of the IEP, so it would not be about the MOU process.
May I follow up?
Follow up.
Thank you. And you also said that the DOE will not be checking these MOUs every year. You have them on a 6-year cycle and then, you know, as needed.
So we would do that. We have a monitoring cycle where we go into every district. And when we say we were going to Concord, we would go into Concord and we would say, please show us all your MOUs. We have other things that we would do with them, but we would check that. But it would be every 6 years we do that. It's not just in the next 6 years. It would be every 6 years beyond that. And that would be for the districts and the charter schools that have turned them in for the past 2 years. We would ask the other ones who have not turned them in to continue to turn them in until they get 2 years in, just so we have seen them and know what is available.
So from your point of view, the MOUs are being used. You're
think it's-
checking to see that you actually have them.
I'm sorry, I have a cold. We are able to see what they have come up with agreements. I will say that, as I said, it's not a perfect process. There are some districts that it does not help them at all. In the case of the one that called me yesterday and it said, you know, how will things be paid? And it will say to be discussed. That's not going to help. If you're not using the tool, it's not going to help you when you come to a disagreement or you come to a place where things are not being done the way you had agreed to. So I think that it does help some. I will agree that maybe it's not helping others.
So if we get rid of the MOUs, what's that going to do?
There's nothing. There's no. I mean, if districts ask for assistance around the work with charter schools, I have no oversight in the charter schools. I would not be able to assist them. At least with the MOU, I could go back and say, what did you agree to? That's not oversight, but it at least gives something for us to say, you agreed to this, you should be doing this, and it gives them another step. But without that, there's nothing. That I don't approve programs in charter schools. I don't go into charter schools. I don't monitor them. I don't check their staff. We don't do any of that.
So all you want to see is that there is an understanding between the charter school and the sending school about what obligations they have.
Yes, to ensure that they've agreed on how services will be provided to those students.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else who has something to say on this? House Bill 222? If not, we close the hearing on this one. Do you want to give Glenn Cordelli a call? Do you have his, here is his, tell him that we're ready for him.
Daryl's taking a short break.
The what?
Daryl's taking a little break.
No one signed in on 440.
Okay.
You're here in jeans.
There you are. Let's see, we still have a quorum. Yeah, okay. We'll open up the hearing on House Bill 440. And the sponsor is here, Representative Cordelli.
Good morning. Pleasure to be before Senate Education. For the record, I'm Glenn Cordelli, representing Tufton Borough, Wolfboro, and Ossipee in the beautiful Lakes region. And HB 440 is a simple bill. We worked on.
Four simple bills this morning.
That's what they all say, right?
Yeah.
This was really introduced at as a result of conversations with the Department of Education, and it was passed in the House on the consent calendar. And the applicable statute is the duties of the State Board of Education, which states that the board adopt rules to examine the qualification of teacher applicants and issue certificates if they meet the requirements. So this bill does two things at the request of the department. One, it specifies the rules for the initial educator license require passing scores on educator assessments and those assessments are determined by the state board. And secondly, for career and technical education teachers, it exempts them from the other educator assessments if they pass a basic skills test or have an industry certification, since it's a career and technical education situation. So those are really just the two things that the bill does, and I thank you for your time.
Questions from the committee members?
I think he actually had a simple bill.
Too late to execute right now. So see, they do have to obtain a passing score on the professional assessments.
Right. Yeah, and it's up to the state board to determine which assessments those are.
Okay. I don't see any questions from the committee members. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, let the rest of them be that way. Well, this closes the Senate Education hearing on the 4 House bills. I'd like to go into executive session, the school nurse bill from last time.
Motion to go into executive session?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can you just give me?
Okay, let's pull up the school nurse bill, and I'm asking for a re-refer on that one.
Make a motion to re-refer?
A second.
That's House Bill 208. Okay, any discussion on re-refer? Hearing none. All those in favor of re-refer?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? So that's,
Motion for consent?
Second.
you put in consent. All those in favor of consent?
Aye.
Aye. It's 5-0. I'll take it out. Okay. Do you want to do anything with any of today's bills?
Can we do 440?
You could do that. What is the motion on that one?
I'll make a motion of ought to pass on House Bill 440.
Second?
I have it. Ought to pass in a second. Any discussion? Senator Altshuler.
Yeah, I would, so if we're gonna require a particular score for professional education, for administrators, teachers, and instructional specialists, educational specialists for public schools, I think the committee should amend it to include charter schools as well.
Credit score? What?
But this should include charter schools as well.
Well, I think this is for teachers in general.
No, it just says public schools on line 3. So,
Teacher,
I would-
instructional specialists.
Certification of teachers, supervisors, and administrators in the public schools, and I would suggest the committee add and public charter schools.
Madam Chair, the public charter schools always have had an exemption for licensed teachers to
Yeah,
a
they have-
certain, percentage.
They have different rules.
Yeah.
Senator Prentice?
Would we, considering what both Senator Altshuler and Senator Sullivan said, would we be best to hold on this and clarify? Because if there is a difference, but we're talking about a standard which is licensure, we should, I think we should know the answer to that question. Like you said, up to a certain percentage, Senator Sullivan. I don't know what that means, and I'd like to, and I also think that there is, having licensure standards sets a particular bar for a reason, and I would want to know more before I feel comfortable vote. I want to hear answers to both of those
That's-
questions before I voted. I think that that's.
Your concern is fair enough. I'm just thinking, my own personal feeling is that the teachers can be teaching different places. And this is just a requirement of the teachers, supervisors, and administrators in the public schools. Now, the charter school is a public school.
So if
I'll
a
be
charter
happy-
school is a public school, then.
The
the
public
lic-
charter schools.
So the public charter schools and licensure, this should apply across.
Yeah, we can hold off on this if you, that will be more
If the-
comfortable for you.
If those who made the motion are willing to withdraw for
Yep.
now.
Yep,
we
I'll
can
withdraw my
act-
motion.
Follow up with
Withdraw the
Senator.
motion? Okay, thank you very much. We'll
Can
take
we
it up.
follow up with Representative Cordelli on that?
Yes. I will.
Great.
I will do that.
What about HB 184, a study committee on school times? Is there an appetite to deal with?
ITL.
Senator Prentice, just to answer your question, at least 50% of charter school teaching staff must be New Hampshire certified or have at least 3 years of teaching experience. So that's the answer for the charter schools.
And it's been that way since inception because they have a different way of they have different offerings than traditional public schools.
Okay. Not,
It's like you get an engineer that comes in and teaches, but then not necessarily a teacher. And that has always been the background for the charter schools to have a more creative way of teaching and having more leeway in that.
but there is, agreed, understood, but they are, I think we're out of this bill, but if it's okay, can we entertain this discussion just a little bit? Senator Ward or Senator Sullivan and I are having, are
Okay.
you good with us talking about this a little?
Yeah,
even
as
though
long
we-
as it doesn't take too much time.
Okay, just that, if it's a public school, if it's a public charter school, and it's being treated in not the exact same way, but receives public dollars and it is close to or looks like in many ways a public school, then I don't understand why the standard would be different. Like a visiting teacher is one thing, I'm all for that. But if somebody, that's their full-time job, that's what they do, shouldn't they have the same license as a person that's doing it over in the public, like a regular public school? Let me give you this example. This is something that I talk about regularly. Like we have ambulance services that, God bless them, they're still volunteer run. And then we have ambulance services that have full-time career personnel, but they both have the same protocols and they're both required to have the same licensure so that the public standard is the same. You don't know whether it's a career or volunteer person that's coming to help you. You just know that if they got a license, it's all the same. So that's kind of a central core place that I'm working from when I'm thinking about this. Okay, that's all.
Thank you.
So we can talk about that more, but that's where I'm
Yes.
coming from. Maybe you can help me to understand a little bit more from where you're coming from, and we can have this discussion offline. Okay,
I always welcome a conversation with you, Senator.
okay, thank you, Senator Sullivan. All right.
Back to House Bill 184.
So
The thing is that, we have to be very careful with study committees. We're not going to have
Yeah.
the space to have these study committees. That's one overriding. And we did have a study, we have a report from a couple of years ago. And I'll be happy to, take time to read through it, find out, and then we have an opportunity, we can do that next time we have an executive session.
And I did ask him what age group, because it tends to be the high school students, the older students. As far as like Manchester for busing, there's no way that we could bring back that start time, because then you've got the younger kids going to school at like 9 o'clock, 9:30 in the morning. Sports end up being later, and it's not
Right.
the same as other people. But also, there's an argument because they're saying that teenagers are staying up too late. Well, guess what? You're gonna have to adult sooner or later and learn not to stay up all night long on your
Right.
phone, right? We had to. I was in school at 7:20 in the morning. I survived. I guess you're prepared for life, and these kids we're supposed to be preparing them for life.
So, Senator Warden, thank you, Senator Sullivan, for your comments. I'd be happy to hold on to this for a week. I think that since work has been done on this in the past, we should talk to Representative Wheeler about that, and maybe this is a re-refer or an ITL. I mean, I appreciate the interest because I've been contacted by the students, but I think the complexity of how this could affect the entire state is
It's huge.
it's huge. That's why I'm all for some type of range. And they're and there's been work that's been done on this. So, yeah, okay, that's all I want to say. So I mean, I would be happy to re-refer, but can we just talk to Representative Wheeler quick?
Yes.
Like
And
one
we
more
should-
time and then decide
We
what to
should read
do.
the results of of what we have.
Yes.
So that we're better informed.
Thank you.
Any other issues to come before the committee? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion to get out of executive session.
Motion for
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're out of executive session. Thank you very much.
I'm gonna take a picture and send to the board member.